The job at the 24-hour convenience store was supposed to be easy. Andrew had taken it for the quiet night shifts and the extra cash. Working alone from midnight to 8 a.m. meant he could focus on his studies and maybe catch a few hours of sleep when no customers showed up. It was a routine he had grown used to, and nothing strange had ever happened, until one particular night that changed everything. It was a cold, rainy Tuesday. The streets were empty as usual. Andrew had been sitting behind the counter scrolling through his phone, glancing up occasionally at the security monitors, though they never showed anything but the deserted parking lot and the dimly lit aisles. The store was stocked with the usual: shelves of snacks, refrigerated drinks, and the occasional oddball who wandered in at 3 a.m. looking for cigarettes or energy drinks. That night, however, something felt different. There was a stillness in the air, one that made the hairs on the back of Andrew's neck stand up. At first, he tried to ignore it, blaming the eerie feeling on the weather or maybe his exhaustion. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, and time seemed to drag. Around 2:30 a.m., the automatic sliding door swished open. Andrew looked up from his phone, expecting to see a late-night customer shuffle in, but the door opened to nothing. No one was there. He squinted, leaning forward to get a better look, but the parking lot was empty, save for the flickering streetlight across the road. The door stood wide open, the cold night air rushing inside. "Must be a glitch," he muttered to himself, walking over to close it manually. As soon as he approached, the door slid shut on its own. He paused, staring at it for a moment. Weird. Andrew walked back behind the counter, glancing at the security monitors again. But they showed the same thing. Nothing. He tried to shake off the unease, telling himself it was probably just a malfunction. After all, things broke down all the time in the store. But then, the door opened again. This time it didn't close. Andrew waited, eyes fixed on the entrance, half expecting to see a stray dog or something wandering in. But once again, the door stood open, leading to an empty parking lot. His heart rate picked up. Maybe someone was messing with him? He scanned the monitors again, but no one was there. Frustrated, he grabbed his jacket and stepped outside, the rain tapping lightly against the pavement. He looked around the lot, but there wasn't a soul in sight. The streetlights flickered in the distance, and the only sound was the wind whistling through the empty streets. He turned back toward the store, ready to dismiss the whole thing as his tired mind playing tricks on him, when he saw it. A figure, standing just beyond the farthest streetlight, barely visible through the rain. Andrew froze, his breath catching in his throat. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching him. He squinted, trying to make out any details, but it was too far away. His mind raced. Was it a person? An animal? He couldn't be sure. Then, without warning, the figure stepped into the shadows and disappeared. Andrew stumbled back into the store, heart pounding. He locked the door behind him, his hands shaking. Something wasn't right. Maybe it was just some drunk messing around, but there was something about the way the figure had stood there, unmoving, that chilled him to the bone. Back inside, Andrew sat down behind the counter, keeping an eye on the monitors. The unease he had felt earlier was now a full-blown knot of anxiety twisting in his stomach. He glanced at the clock. 3 a.m. 5 more hours until his shift ended, and he could leave this place behind. The rest of the night was quiet. Too quiet. No customers came in, and the door stayed closed. But the feeling of being watched never left him. Every time Andrew looked up, he half expected to see the figure standing at the door, waiting to get in. Around 4:30 a.m., the phone rang. Andrew jumped at the sound. No one ever called the store at this time. He hesitated for a moment before picking up the receiver. "Hello?" he said, his voice shaky. There was nothing on the other end, just static. He waited, listening closely, hoping to hear someone speak. But after a few seconds, the line went dead. Andrew hung up, his heart racing again. He checked the monitors once more, but everything was as it had been, empty. He was starting to feel like he was losing his mind. Maybe it was the long hours, the lack of sleep. Maybe he was just imagining things. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something on the monitor. A shadow, moving between the aisles of the store. Andrew's blood ran cold. Someone was inside. He stood up, grabbing the nearest thing he could use as a weapon. a broom, before slowly walking around the counter. He moved toward the back of the store, toward the aisles where he had seen the shadow. His breath was shallow, and his hands were slick with sweat as he gripped the broom tighter. As he turned the corner, he expected to see someone standing there, waiting, but there was nothing. The aisles were empty, but then he heard it, a soft, low whisper coming from somewhere nearby. Andrew froze, his heart pounding in his ears. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, like it was coming from all around him. He ran back to the front, threw the broom down, and called his manager, leaving a message. "I'm done with this shift. I can't explain it, but something's not right here." The rest of the night passed in agonizing silence, but Andrew knew one thing for sure. He would never work the night shift again. What would you have done in Andrew's situation? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.